Yeah, if we're unmuted, which I hope we are.
You are.
I want to say good afternoon to all the fellow Rotarians and guests, especially my darling wife. I want to get some points while I can. I'm privileged to be on site at the World Bird Sanctuary for our program today. It's located on approximately 305 acres in Valley Park, Missouri, and it's about 55 minutes from Edwardsville. I would encourage everybody to bring their spouse, loved ones, kids, grandkids to tour the facility. The variety of birds they have here and it's in the beautiful rolling hills of Missouri. Just very scenic. They've got trails to walk, so it would be, I know you would not regret coming here. I'm joined today by Jeff Meshach, who's the director, and he actually put on the program for us about 5 years ago at our facility in Edwardsville. I don't know if the people that were there remember. He brought an eagle, and it was really cool. And then also Holly Berthold, who is coming in the door. She's in charge of marketing. And we're going to start by viewing a video that was put together by the internationally renowned film producer, known only as Musanda because his last name's too difficult to pronounce. So he put together a neat video, and so let's start that right now, if you could, Musanda.
Okay. Let me grab them.
Was he standing or laying?
He was standing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's give him his meds.
So this bird has got issues that we don't exactly understand. It's acting, Lauren explained earlier, and it's something going on with this nervous system, neurologic issues, can't stand well, can't hold its head correctly sometimes, and we're not exactly sure what's going on with this bird, but it came into us thin. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Lauren came into us thin. So Lauren felt the keel here, that center bone, and if the muscle is pulled way far away, the muscle and fat in that bone sticks out really far, that bird is, we can tell, is undernourished that way. But then also Alex took a weight on the bird, so we want to make sure that every bird that comes into us, especially if they're very thin, we want to make sure every day that they're gaining weight. So that's why Alex took a weight on the bird. It's a good way to tell generally how good or bad the bird's shape is with that keel bone, but it's really important to take a weight on them too, to make sure that they're gaining weight every day. So Lauren is tubing this bird because it, again, with these neurologic issues it has, it's not eating on its own yet. And so she's getting calories in the bird. She sticks that tube down into the crop and injects this calorie-laden slurry into the bird's crop to make sure that it's getting the calories. And now she's going to feed it pieces of lean meat. And this is probably
first day.
Rat meat. Okay, this is the first meat that this bird has gotten since it's been with us.
Yeah. And yes, it is rat meat.
And you see the mouth, that's really important. Lauren made sure that the bird swallowed that piece, and you could tell with the mouth, the way it moved its mouth, that it swallowed that piece. So sometimes birds are so underweight and so malnourished that if you put food in them, whole food, they will regurgitate it because their body says, I cannot digest that. Too much energy would have to go to digesting that, which the energy is needed in other places in the body. So this is why we're only going to give this bird just a little bit of food and keep monitoring it throughout the day to make sure that that food stays down. and that slurry that Lauren put down into the bird's crop that is very easily digested, so that helps get needed calories into the bird's body, which will help it digest this whole food that we're giving it.
Normally, this red-tailed hawk would eat about 150 grams of food daily, and we are only feeding him 20. So that gives you a good idea of just how little we're giving him to make sure that he can digest it properly.
Good point. And this is a juvenile red-tailed hawk. This bird was hatched this year. They nest a little bit later in the season than great horned owls do. A bird that we call a Vita was hatched here at World Bird Sanctuary 10 years ago. And she is one of our coolest education and display birds. As you can see, an incredibly long wingspan, one of the longest wingspans of a bird in the world. About 10 or so feet from wingtip to wingtip. And this is a female, and we can tell that because the females don't have the fleshy structure right here on their beak and their forehead like the males do. You can see the male there with the fleshy structure, and the female on the right hand side there. Vultures are flock birds in the wild. You can find vultures and condors. Condors and vultures are closely related, usually in big flocks.
Oh yeah, friends for life.
I think you should look at the camera, Dave, also.
My new BFF.
And what he's eating is basically just emu food. It's compressed grains, greens, things like that. These guys they eat a lot of leafy things, nuts, berries, vegetables and things like that.
A little bit more.
If you want to hand me another handful, he'll eat. He will.
Say that big because he's a light eater, right?
He hasn't eaten all night.
You're a messy eater.
Yeah, the crazy thing though is that he grabs it and he like shoots it back into his mouth, and he gets most of it in there.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's cool.
One of his favorite treats is dandelion greens, so usually when I'm walking up and down the line, if I see some that look really nice, I'll bring them into him. I just did a funny Facebook post about him. Sprinkles, our dandelion expert, explained why dandelions are so important to everybody in the world. Yeah. These are really
interesting.
cool.
Interesting feeling feathers, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Kind of coarse.
So their feathers are double plumed. So they have 2 feathers for a single quill there. And it allows them to block the sunlight radiation, but also keeps them warm because in Australia they do have the heat and the cold that we have here in the United States. And so it helps protect them. So the feathers that they have up here are actually soft and silky, and then they have rustly feathers on the back. Not quite sure what the purpose of it is. If it's, like, are they rustle them as a warning, or if they use it for cleaning or anything like that. But yeah, they have the double plumes.
Interesting.
Yep.
Wow.
But they're part of the same family as...
Can you bring it closer there?
Oh, I sure can.
Wow, interesting.
They're part of the ratite family, so they share the same characteristics of things like ostriches, emus, rheas, cassowaries, and kiwis. And so they're a very archaic bird. If you look at their feet look very dinosaur-like. And they're designed to help them stay up, so they don't have the hollow bones that birds do. Their bones are actually dense the way that humans and mammals are, because they have to fight against gravity. And then they have a wing, but it's very, very small. I can even find it in here. I can't even find your wing. It's literally this right here. It's like, it's about this long, and it has a little talon on the end of it. A little vestigial talon. But yeah, so they're designed for running on the ground. They're the flightless birds. I can get to be about 30 to 35 miles per hour speeds. and those legs are incredibly strong. So in Australia, they don't have large mammals to be a predator for them. So most of their most of their risk is going to be injury, any kind of conflict with man and that sort of thing. Anything that tries to eat them is going to get stomped because of those very heavy feet. And it's the same with a lot of the other ratites. Cassowaries are actually a very dangerous bird. They're probably one of the most dangerous birds that you work with because they actually have a talon that they can use for scraping and ripping. So a lot of keepers say working with cassowaries is probably one of the most dangerous professions.
Okay. We're on our display line here at World Bird Sanctuary, and thought it was pretty important to talk about the older enclosures that we have that we will eventually be replacing. But these enclosures were built by Boy Scouts for scouts going for their Eagle badges, and scouts, especially the guys going for, and girls going for their Eagle badges, or the highest badge you can get in Girl Scouts. They've done incredible projects for us. These enclosures were built 15 or so years ago, and they serve their purpose very well for us. We've got a swallowtail kite in one here, and a red-tailed hawk here in the other one. But they will eventually be replaced with these enclosures that are on this side of the road, and these enclosures will house some really cool crows and ravens one day. As you can see, they're pretty close to being done, and there's 3 different chambers, and we'll probably have an American crow, a common raven, and also a white-necked raven, which are native to Africa, so people get to see another species of raven that they wouldn't normally see. These enclosures cost around $10,000. This whole enclosure costs around $10,000 to build. So we're transitioning to enclosures that are more modern, first of all, so that people, when they're walking by, can see the birds even a little bit better. But secondly, because sooner or later we will we're moving towards AZA accreditation. American Zoo and Aquarium Association is AZA. And we are building enclosures now that are AZA accredited. Now, this building is closed to the public, except that every day at 11 and 3, we do training with the birds that we use for our education programs. And so we thought that, well, maybe people would want to pay a little bit of extra money and come down and see the show. And so we can keep everybody socially distant in here, and we keep it to a certain number of people. I think we can have like 30 people in here. And so they can pay extra money at the gate or at the gift shop and come down and see our training session for the birds. And we free fly birds back and forth.
Yeah.
And they can also sign up online for that if they want also. But other than that, this building is closed right now because of the COVID.
Okay.
Interview session where I'll ask questions to Jeff and Holly, and they'll respond accordingly. The first question is, can you give all the viewers background on the World Bird Sanctuary? When was it founded? By who? What is its purpose?
Sure. World Bird Sanctuary was founded back in 1977 by Walter C. Crawford Jr. Walter was a St. Genevieve native, but moved to St. Louis. He was a Vietnam veteran and was a curator of birds at the St. Louis Zoo, assistant curator of birds at the St. Louis Zoo for about 10 years before he went off and formed his own organization. Back then it was called the Raptor Rehabilitation and Propagation Project Incorporated. And we changed the name in 1992 to World Bird Sanctuary. We save birds in basically 4 different ways. We have the first thing that we ever did at World Bird Sanctuary, the first thing you saw in the video was our rehabilitation department. There was no place to rehabilitate injured birds of prey in the St. Louis area until Walter started it back in 1977 in his backyard, and then eventually moved to Tyson Research Center, and now to our new facility here that we've been in since 2004. But we rehabilitate injured birds of prey. We usually rehabilitate between 400 and 500 a year, and our success rate is just a little over 40%. but the national success rate for getting birds rehabilitated and back into the wild is about 32%. So our vets and vet techs and volunteers work very hard, and we are very proud of that number of 40% getting them back into the wild. And we also educate. The education department at World Bird Sanctuary is our largest department. Of course, with the COVID going on, we've not been doing nearly as many programs as we've done in years past. We started our education program a little bit after our rehabilitation department started back in the late 70s, early 80s. And we educate and entertain literally hundreds of thousands of people a year. And we feel that, of course, very important to make sure that we are teaching young people the problems that birds of prey have, and certainly also what they can do to help birds of prey. There's so many different things that you can do to help birds of prey in just your daily lives. And we make sure that our guests get a good dose of the problems, but also the solutions too. And then we also have a propagation department. World Bird Sanctuary brought back the peregrine falcon. We literally brought the peregrine falcon back as a nesting species to the state of Missouri. And we hatched and raised peregrines at World Bird Sanctuary. We took the chicks and released them back to the wild. And we started that in the mid-'80s. And in 1991, we had our first chick in over 80 years hatched in the wild. And it was on the then Southwestern Bell building in downtown St. Louis. And yet again, the first bird peregrine hatched in the wild in over 80 years in Missouri. And we know that the parents were ones that we had hatched and raised and released in previous years because they all had bands on them. So our propagation department, we're still working with American barn owls. We release American barn owls to the wild. We still do that. We hatch and raise them and release them to the wild because they're still a species of special concern across most of Missouri. And then we also have a field studies department, and our field studies department does research in especially the way that we band. We misnet songbirds right here on grounds. We did that this morning. In fact, we do it. We'll do it 2 more Thursday mornings here in the month of August, and we take measurements on the birds, send that all into a big database, and also band the birds and release them in hopes of learning things about increasing our knowledge about their migration patterns and many other things about the birds when the bands are recorded again.
In 2004, when you guys moved out here, why was this area chosen? Was this land given to you, or?
Yes, that's a good question. When we were over at Tyson Research Center, which is Washington University's biology field station, which is just literally just like a mile away from where we sit right now. We were not open to the public. That was our headquarters. We were only open to the public 2 days a year. And Walter wanted to be open to the public all the time to show off our amazing birds and do education programs here on grounds. So he started looking for property back in the late 80s and looked at 12 different pieces of property, had contacts all over the state, including in the Department of Natural Resources. And one of his contacts there got with him and said, well, what about this 135 acres that's right next to Lone Elk Park? And this piece of property was perfect, 18 miles away from downtown St. Louis. Again, 135 acres so we could spread out and build our enclosures and our offices and our nature center and our amphitheater. And we moved slowly but surely, starting in 1995, we started moving from Tyson over to the new World Bird Sanctuary, and we opened in 2004.
So Jeff has a good memory because I have 12 questions and he breezed through, I think 9 or 10 of them. So I'm going to try and find the ones he missed. One of them I think you missed is what's the largest, smallest, and most unusual birds you've received here?
Yeah, and through our rehabilitation department, we are allowed to rehabilitate injured birds of prey and also herons. So I would have to say that one of the most interesting birds, in my opinion, that has come through was a least bittern. They're about that tall, very secretive. They are native to Missouri, but you rarely see them because they are so secretive. And we had one that came through our rehabilitation department, and we were able to rehabilitate it and release it back to the wild. Another interesting large bird is every now and again we get a pelican, and the state allows us to rehabilitate injured pelicans. And they are the most interesting birds in that you can get a wild pelican, and within a few hours, it is acting like it's been in captivity like its whole life. I've never seen a species like that. And they are actually characters. They run around the rehabilitation.
Dave and Gina, you guys are muted.
Is that okay now?
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
What's the last thing you heard?
They're odd characters like Dave.
I'm easily domesticated.
So you didn't hear anything about the least bitter?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
Was that the little bird?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, we heard the little bird, then you went into the pelican. They become domesticated real quickly, and that's about the end of what we heard.
Well, okay, perfect, because I was almost done anyway. So the pelicans, they seem to get along with everybody and adapt very well to our living conditions when they're with us. But as soon as we take them back to the river and put them on the river and they see it, they fly away from us like they didn't even know we existed. You know, they're completely wild birds. They revert right back to the wild just like that. Very interesting species, and they're big too. They have a 10-foot wingspan, and they weigh upwards of 20 pounds. So very, very large birds that migrate through Missouri. In the fall, they're coming south, of course, in big flocks, and we can see them in the spring too on their way back to their breeding grounds in northern United States and southern Canada.
I think I found another question you did not address. What kind of species, no, I'm sorry, what kind of birds do you train to become ambassadors for?
Oh, we have a wide variety of birds that we train. We're trying to make sure that when somebody comes to World Bird Sanctuary, they're not just seeing, we have really cool native species in Missouri and in the United States for sure, but there are incredible species from around the world. And we're trying to make sure that when people come to World Bird Sanctuary, they get to see a good cross-cut of birds from around the world. We have used birds like buzzards over in Africa, Europe, and Asia. They call their hawks, like the red-tailed hawk, a buzzard. And when our ancestors came here to the United States and looked up and saw our vultures flying around, they called them buzzard. So that's why people still call turkey vultures and black vultures buzzards here in the United States, but it's actually wrong. So we've used several different species of buzzards. You saw the Andean condor. We've actually used those for in some of our education programs. Pelicans, an injured pelican. We used to use an injured pelican for programs, and those pelicans are still on grounds here at World Bird Sanctuary in a display. So it's crows and ravens. We love using crows and ravens for education because they're so smart. You can train them to do just about anything. So yeah, we have quite a wide variety of birds that we love to use for education. And we think that our education programs, we know, in fact, they're unique because we do use live birds. We use live birds for our education programs. And we can literally, we like to educate, of course, but we also like to entertain. So the entertainment part of our programs are people being able to see these wild birds up so close.
Yeah, I know you addressed the banding that you do. Last year, how many birds did you band? I don't think you addressed that.
We banded in 2019 just a little over 1,100 birds, and that was 25 different species of birds that were banded. Again, with our nest netting department, and also when we rehabilitate an injured bird of prey and it goes back to the wild, we always put a band on it.
I think that's all the questions I had for Jeff, and I have one for Holly.
Scoot up.
Holly Berthold, as mentioned before, in charge of marketing. I know the coronavirus has had a detrimental effect to your operations. Can you tell a little bit about
So you're going to make me deliver the bad news after all that happy news, guys. You know, it has been very difficult, and a lot of the things that we have relied on
such as our big gala that brings in upwards of $70,000 a year, the zoo shows that Jeff organizes that we do all over this country, and that comes to another 50,000. Our camps, people just coming in and throwing some money into our donation boxes, and certainly the work that I do with donations. People don't want me in their homes right now, and I understand it. You know, everyone's being very careful, and it's very easy for people to say, not right now. You know, let's just put that off. So my focus has turned from individual donations, people that would give 10,000 or more, to corporations. And corporations are still buying ads in the St. Louis Business Journal. American Water just put up a brand new billboard. You know, so people in corporations are what I'm focusing on right now, because I'm with development and marketing. So, you know, we've taken an incredible hit, but I want to talk a little bit about our staff and what we've done, because it's really a success story. We have started doing a lot more with social media and Facebook, and you got to realize here we've got 27 employees. There are 5 of us, 6 of us upstairs in the big office, and we're anywhere from like 45 years old to 60 years old. And then we've got everyone else who's in their 20s and 30s. So we've got this big hit. I'm now officially one of the older ones. I'm kind of having a trouble. No, bad. I was one of the kids before. Now I'm like, oh, man. But at any rate, they're doing a whole lot and picking up with social media campaigns and selling things online, like masks with owls on them. They're selling paintings that some of the Corvids are doing. The Corvids will dip a sponge into a dish and then put it onto a canvas, and we're selling those. And so it's like all of these really creative ideas that are coming from these kids and the old fogies like us. And so we're doing traditional media, we're doing traditional campaigns, but then those kids are really part of the solution to get us other funding. So that's great. So we've kind of switched over from special projects to unrestricted giving. So the jargon is unrestricted is keeping people paid so that we don't have to let anybody go, because if we let people go, the birds suffer. The birds eventually will be the ones that really suffer from that. We're keeping, you know, no one's to buy office equipment right now. So we're really hunkered down. But at the same time, it's making an incredible, strong team of all of us. And, you know, Jeff's out there at the front gate, and he's talking to people and engaging them. And, you know, I worked a beer and pretzel event last Friday. So, you know,
now you got a bunch of Rotarians interested. Beer and pretzels.
Beer and pretzels, yeah. In fact, I would not be. Could you just turn that off? I'm sorry, that's my phone. My husband's calling. He wants to know what's for lunch.
He wants a beer.
I thought it, you know, here you go. There we go. Well, that's a little embarrassing. How about if we just do that? Anyway, so if you would like to know about these events that we're doing, which are anything from drive-through safaris where you and your family come and you stay in your car, but we're holding birds on about 6 feet away. We're doing beer and pretzel nights. We're doing date nights. We're doing all sorts of different things. And that's how we're patching it all together. And so, you know, if you're on Facebook, join it. You'll see some really compelling videos and photos of the birds, some of the new birds that we've gotten in just in the last week. Did you talk about the vulture, the bearded vulture? We now have the only bearded vulture in the Western Hemisphere in captivity. That's huge. So, and she's down, her name is Sophia, and she's down at the lower site, which is not open to the public. But I guess my point is, you know, we're really doing such incredible work here, and we can call ourselves the world leaders in this industry and in this vein of animal care. So if you know people that are interested in birds, and maybe you work at a place that does signage or fencing or printing or anything like that, where you're able to make a donation, or someone that owns a company that would be able to make a donation, that's why I'm here. I'm cobbling everything together so that we can keep this place going and so the birds can be taken care of.
Yeah. Before we open question and answer, I'm going to make 2 comments. One is there's on their website, there's a wish list of items for donation. Secondly, these people are also dedicated that the entire staff took a 20% pay cut so that they can continue operating the way they've operated in the past. So I applaud them for what they're doing, and but it's a great organization. And anyway, let's open it to question and answers.
First off, Holly, could you share the days and the times that the sanctuary is open, if there's any admission, and about how long somebody should allow time for to go through it?
Sure, I'd love to. So we open at 8 o'clock in the morning when it's still nice and cool. And we have a suggested donation of $8 a car, not per person, but per car. So if you load that car up, we'd love to have you come in.
Like Mark, you could sneak in the trunk like you did in the movie drive-in theater days.
Yeah, with the beer and the pretzels. Yeah, and I do want to say, we have picnic tables all throughout this place. And it's such a fun thing to see people go to Jimmy John's and, grab a sack of sandwiches and come out here and have lunch and then go for a walk on the line where the exhibits are. There are about 30 different exhibits. I'm so sorry. 30 different exhibits with all sorts of different birds. And, there's picnic tables over there. One of the things that I'm so proud of is when you go out on that line and you see people taking care of the birds, they stop, they talk to you, they give you and your kids or your grandkids information about the birds. This is the most friendly bunch of people. Before I even worked here, I loved that people would just come up to me and just say, what did you see here today? What was your favorite bird? So $8, we close at 4:30. We start closing the gate, but we're technically closed at 5. And we're open every day except Christmas and New Year's. Thanksgiving. Or, yeah, because New Year's would be a great day to come here. We're open on New Year's. Oh my gosh. That's great. Coming on New Year's. Who wants to come with me? So, was that
That's it.
That's all the questions.
Okay. Well, we've got time for a couple more questions from anyone. Just unmute yourself and fire away.
If anyone typed any in, Mark.
I was going to save that one for last, but I guess we can do that now. There was a question in the chat room. Dave, when you were feeding that emu, there was a question that came across, is that how Kathy has to feed you?
She always has me eating out of her hand.
Oh.
Oh.
Dave. Good answer, Dave.
What did he do that he's kissing up this much?
I can't say.
All right. Any other questions for Holly or Jeff? Okay. Well, hearing none. Holly and Jeff, thank you very much. It was a very informative program. Already getting compliments on the program already.
Hey, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Maybe Jeff should talk about the construction project for those big enclosures. Like when do they want it done? How long does it take? All that stuff.
Awesome.
The big enclosures, how long will it take to get the work done?
Oh, the ones that the ones that had the corvids that are going to get the crows and ravens, they are almost done now. We just have to put some perching in them, a little landscaping going on. Probably within the next month, we will have birds in those enclosures that you saw.
Did the scouts do that?
No, all of the exhibits that we are building now are being built professionally. Again, the scouts did incredible work for us over the years. Built some amazing things for us. But the cages that, the enclosures that they built, they are coming of age. They have to be replaced, and we are heading for AZA accreditation American Zoo and Aquarium accreditation. Probably a few years from now, we hope to become part of that organization. And the enclosures that we're building now are AZA accredited. So that's one less thing we have to worry about when we're worried about some of the other things that we have to climb to get that accreditation.
One of the things that I'm going to share with Dave to share with the rest of you is a write-up, a document of the different enclosures, why we need them, why they're important, and the particulars on that. So you're going to be getting a couple of things from me just so that you know, so that you've got a tangible something in writing that kind of covers everything that we've talked about today, so that you can have that in case you have questions going forward. I'll be sending that out to Dave this afternoon.
Cool, awesome. Well, Holly and Jeff, we want to thank you very much for taking the time out, and I'm sure it was a memorable time for you with Dave.
Yes.
We're buds.
Yeah.
And we also want to thank Gina, who is fast becoming our roving reporter.
Yeah, for sure. She was a calming influence because I have no IT capability, and so Gina was my go-to. And then thanks so much, Masanda, for putting that
Yes.
video together.
Yes,
That was
yes,
beautiful.
yes, well done.
Yes, and for those who are attending, these things look like they go along very smoothly, but there's a lot of hard work that goes in on the front side of this. And then even then, with the well-laid plans, you still got to be adaptive sometimes. So thank you to everybody for pulling these off. Masana, if you could go ahead and unmute everybody, we'll start moving towards wrapping up. Next week, Ann Tasovsky has the program, and SJ, you're back in the invocation box again next week. So before we move to our breakout rooms, which we'll just have a few minutes to do, let's do the four-way test. And of the things we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? So, thank you for being here. See you next week. And with that, we